How often do you complain to God? How often do you complain to God? Personally, not very often because we were raised in a culture, just worried about the sound. Let me just pause. Okay, much better. Yeah, we're raised in a culture where you don't complain to your parents ever. Well, I was raised in a culture where you don't complain, your parents know best, and that's that. You don't ask why. You trust your parents fully, right? But imagine this. Abram is having a conversation, and the conversation opens up with God saying something to him, which includes a promise. And I think the next verse, the immediate verse after the promise was shared with Abram goes on to complain. When last did you complain to God? Like, when last did you go and throw a fit in front of your dad? When last? Maybe this is your sign to actually go to the throne and just collapse in front of your dad and complain about what you want. Maybe you've been too nice. Maybe you've been too cordial. Obviously not disrespectful, because this is your Father in heaven. But when last did you complain? This is a very long sound check. This is a sound check. So hi there and welcome to my YouTube channel. The name is Gorata.Selaledi. I'm so excited to be here yet again on this beautiful Friday. So exciting. I had to really do a lot of work to prepare myself to come here today. I was feeling a bit tired. I almost napped. And my husband asked me, what's the problem? What's the challenge? It's not raining. You still have time. You still have daylight. And I was like, the challenge is me. I am tired. But what I said and what was true, what rang true and is true, is that I'd get energy as I was preparing to come here. So what I usually do is to really just prepare as if I'm going out. So as you can see, I did my hair, laid my edges, wore these cute earrings that I got yesterday, wore my thrifted shirt, which I really like. It has character. And even put on perfume, guys, as if I'm going out. And what I'd say to him when he laughed and said, oh, you're putting on perfume. It's like, yes, because it's about me as well. It's about how I feel before coming onto this platform. Bit of my process. Hi there, if you're on here, the name is Gorata.Selaledi. And I think I'm going back to my old ways of rambling. And I need to rein it in. But as I was living out today, I got myself going back to my videos that I've posted and rewording the titles to actually fit what I was talking about in the video. And I found a hack to say the title of your YouTube video has to be I'd say catchy, but it speaks to a story, because people love stories, right? So I kind of just repurposed most of them for my Faith Friday videos, so you'll see a new rhythm, a different rhythm, if I was to say. But as a way of driving the right people to my platform, right, driving you to my platform, hoping that it will find the right people, as the title communicates what the heart of the video is, right? And if you are a returning subscriber, thank you so much for coming back on here. So exciting as we continue on our consistent journey. But I will be honest and say that I realized my stats that not a lot of people watch my videos. So I'm kind of creating for the few that actually follow and watch my videos. I know a few consistent people who come on here every video and engage. So I am operating at a place where there's a lot of trial and error that I'm allowed to do. Let me explain. So the other day I edited this video and the sound was mixed up. I had put 2 audio clips for the background and they kind of just muddled my voice. So I realized, I think 10 minutes into it having had gone live on my platform, and I was like, wait, no one's watched it yet. Let me go back, delete it, edit it, and upload it back up. So I really like that. I had that freedom, but I think learning, I'm at a space where I have room to actually grow and refine my content creation skills. And something that I decided in the past week was also deciding to stick to long form content and improve on this particular side of the creation universe and leave TikTok completely, because I think with TikTok, what I realize, what I like is like relatable content. Not to say that the content I was creating was not relatable, but I don't have the words for it. But I'm like, I'll come back when I figure it out. I pray for God to give me the wisdom for it. Maybe in 2026 I'll post consistently that side, but for now I've put it on pause. A young check-in before we get into today's video. Hi again. Told you, back to my rambling ways. But today we are going to be continuing on our journey. If you are new here, I have been reading the Bible and will be until I'm 54, 55 or 53, somewhere there, for the next 22 or 20 something years, as I read a chapter every week, and we come on here, we reflect together. And today we are reading Genesis 15. Genesis 15, and which has inspired the opening of today's video, where I asked you, when last did you go to God to complain? When last did you go to God to complain? Because what we see in Genesis 15, and I will start reading it for you and then we'll unpack it a little bit more. But just the thought to say that as soon as God shared this new promise, or worded the promise differently in Genesis 15, we see Abram going back and turning around and complaining to God about how he doesn't have an heir. He doesn't have his own heir, right? And which was valid. And it got me thinking, even as I was preparing to come on today's video, to then say, how often do I go to God and, present the things that I want? Am I really being honest with God? And if I'm frustrated, do I go to Him with my frustrations, right? And personally, for my motherhood journey, I think for this area, I've been very, very honest with God. Like in moments where I'm feeling overwhelmed or frustrated, I'll literally say a prayer. And if I can't find the words, I'll go to ChatGPT and ask him to generate a prayer for me that I can recite. Because I realized that I can't actually do this on my own. It's such a sacred, I'd say, space where we are gardening and raising this beautiful flower that God has planted in our garden. So I can't do it with my own strength. But otherwise, overall, in all the other areas of my life, like, have I been honest to God to say, this is what I want, right? So let's get into the word, and we will get into the story time a bit more after I read the word to you. So let's get into it. So I am going to be reading in your hearing Genesis 15, and I am reading the King James version. I hope you have your Bible close by. I am going to get myself a new Bible next month for Christmas, a pink Bible, because my friend got me Bible tabs and I'm going to put them in the pink Bible. Sidebar. Let me read in your hearing. So reading Genesis 15 in your hearing, it says, after these things, just see how long it is, 21 verses, okay. After these things, the word of the Lord came unto Abram in a vision, saying, fear not, Abram, I am thy shield and thy exceeding great reward. And Abram said, Lord God, what wilt thou give me, seeing I go childless, and the steward of my house is this Eliezer of Damascus? And Abram said, behold, to me thou hast not given no seed, and lo, one born in my house is mine heir. And behold, the word of the Lord came unto him, saying, this shall not be thine heir, but he that shall come forth out of thine own bowels shall be thine heir. And he brought him forth abroad, and said, look now towards heaven, and tell the stars, if thou be able to number them. And he said unto him, so shall thy seed be. And he believed in the Lord, and he counted to him righteousness. And he said unto him, I am the Lord that brought thee out of Ur of the Chaldees, to give thee this land to inherit it. And he said, Lord God, whereby shall I know that I shall inherit it? And he said unto him, Take me an heifer of 3 years old, and a she goat of 3 years old, and a ram of 3 years old, and a turtle dove, and a young pigeon. And he took him all these and divided them in the midst, and laid each piece one against another. But the birds divided he not. And when the fowls came down upon the carcasses, Abram drove them away. And when the sun was going down, a deep sleep fell upon Abram. And lo, an horror of great darkness fell upon him. And he said unto Abram, Know of a surety that thy seed shall be a stranger in a land that is not theirs, and shall serve them, and they shall afflict them 400 years. And also that nation whom they shall serve will I judge, and afterward shall they come out with great substance. And thou shalt go to thy fathers in peace. Thou shalt be buried in a good old age, but in the 4th generation they shall come hither again, for the iniquity of the Amorites is not yet full. And it came to pass that when the sun went down and it was dark, behold, a smoking furnace and a burning lamp that passed between those pieces. In the same day, the Lord made a covenant with Abram, saying, Unto thy seed have I given this land, from the river of Egypt unto the great river, the river Euphrates, the Kenites and the Kenizzites and the Kadmonites and the Hittites and the Perizzites and the Rephaims and the Amorites and the Canaanites and the Girgashites and the Jebusites. End of Genesis 15. Yeah, so for today's video, the reflection is really premised around trusting God even if the promise is delayed, right? So once you've gone and you've thrown your fit and you've cried and you've put before God that which you want, trusting that it shall come to pass. A line that I like, A line that I like is verse 6 that says, And he believed in the Lord, and he counted it to him for righteousness. All right. So post making your vision board in 2026, post setting your resolutions, are you going to have the heart to trust? Are you going to have the posture of waiting on this God and believing that he will make each and every one of those things come to pass, but in a bigger way? You know that image where Jesus, and there's a girl who's giving Jesus his one flower, and Jesus has like a bouquet of flowers behind him. I'm going to find it on Pinterest and put it here. I'm doing this so that I remember to edit it. Let me write it down also. So pick Jesus big a bouquet. Bouquet, right? So handing over 2026 into God's hand. But what I want to challenge us in today's video is for us to be dreamers, right? And faithful dreamers. Maybe you're not dreaming big enough. And I think I'm going to use that as the title. Maybe you are not dreaming big enough. Yeah, maybe you're not dreaming big enough, right? And that's why your life feels a bit stuck. That's why you feel like your life is not moving. Maybe you are not dreaming big enough. And a part of me just convicted me, and actually now to say, Gorata, maybe you're speaking from a place of privilege, right? Maybe you're speaking from a place of privilege, looking at your own life. But I think I want to challenge us to actually realize that each and every one of us are operating from a place where there is something that we are longing for. Personally, for me, there are things that I would want God to fulfill for me in 2026. You may or may not be living in it now or waiting for it to come to pass. I personally am living in one of those things, if I should say. But I was actually talking to one of my friends who was sharing how she feels God isn't showing up for her. And I think that's where the conviction came from, to say, okay, you say maybe you're not dreaming big enough, but it feels as though nothing is working out as it should, right? It feels as though God is not coming through for me. So what now? And what I had said to her, I said, I actually don't know what to say, but what I know for sure is that God has not forsaken you, and that He's working out this moment even still for your good, although it doesn't seem like it, right? And I think when we look at Genesis 15 as well, we see a point where God is saying, I'll fulfill the promise, right? I'll fulfill the promise, but this is what will happen to your seed. This is what will happen to your seed. Where in Him fulfilling the promise, Abram, the seed had, I'd say, what's the word? A prophecy of what was meant to happen over their lives. So I'm thinking and connecting the two, like connecting this and the conversation I had with my friend, to then say, what if that season is purposed? What if God is actually doing something out of the pain that you're experiencing in the moment? And obviously, it's something that no one actually wants to hear. I wouldn't have wanted to hear it 3 years ago when we were going through our grief, to say that what if the pain is God using it for something bigger? What if? You don't want to hear it in the moment. But we see here God prophesying to Abram about his seed, to say that this seed, from 13 to 14, it says, And he said unto Abraham, Know of a surety that thy seed shall be a stranger in a land that is not theirs, and shall serve them, and they shall afflict them 400 years. And also that nation whom they shall serve will I judge, and afterward shall they come out with great substance. And I think the word from today's video, or today, the call, I actually wanted to just talk about trusting and waiting and God's promises when they are delayed. But also, I think just thinking about how there's great substance that God is bringing out of you in the waiting. I think that's a better title. So, trusting in the substance that comes from the waiting. I think I'll give it to chat to refine it. From the waiting. But I think a lesson as we move into a new year, to then say you're going to set your vision, you're going to set your resolutions, you're going to drop your vision board. But what's going to happen as you wait? What we can see in verse 13, God is saying, I will afflict them, or the person who they're going to be put under will afflict them for 400 years. Imagine you're living out and the year 200 of that affliction versus the person living out year 399 on the very last day before year 400 ends. And that's probably the time where they're being freed and Moses was freeing them from Egypt. But imagine the contrast of operating from a place of knowing that this is going to end eventually, even if it doesn't end with you, sadly, I hope. It's just to pray that it ends with you. But imagine in the lineage of 400 years, there's affliction that is happening in that particular generation. And we see God having had communicated this to Abram to say it'll only end after 400 years, right? I think it's scary. I'm thinking about it from the context of my friend, and she's on my heart right now, even as I'm recording this video, to then say the posture that she's in terms of her believing that God has forsaken her, breaks my heart. And I think maybe just to speak to anyone who might be also going through something that feels as though you're not winning, or you're not coming out of it, or God is not showing up for you, that God is working it out for your good, that there's a promise in that situation that you're living through. And I think here's the promise, and I love the fact that in Genesis 15 it comes before the whole conversation, the whole complaining, and what the promise will look like practically for Abram, right? So in Genesis 15, verse 1, it says, "After these things, the word of the Lord came unto Abram in a vision, saying, Fear not, Abram, I am thy shield and thy exceeding great reward." The title of this video is going to change so many times because I feel like that should be the focus. To say that as you're living through the situation you're living through, outside of the pain, the hurt, at the end of the day, when you get God, you've won. You've won through the situation. And I feel like I was trying to do that podcast people thing where you're speaking into a mic and you want to sound woke. But I think just said simply, thinking about Genesis 15, verse 1, to then say that God is your reward. If you are not to get any of the things that you're envisioning for 2026, but you get God, you have the ultimate reward, right? And God is also saying that He's your shield. Even as you live out 2026 and trials and temptations come your way, God is saying, I'm thy shield. None of those things are going to hurt you. They might hurt emotionally, but your spirit is covered. God is your shield. He's shielding you and protecting you. Just like Job, when the devil was like, I'm taking the kids, I'm taking the cows, I'm taking the houses, I'm taking the friends. I'm imagining the conversation going like that. But God says, don't touch him, right? And I'm declaring over you that no matter what you're going through right now, God has declared that the devil will not harm you, that He is your shield, that He is protecting you, that you are covered in this season of your life. I might actually use that as the title. Where? You are covered and God is your reward. And God is your reward. Yeah. I'm gonna say, God says, and He is your reward. Yes, right? And I think I like how the title is transforming, because even for me, wanting to come back to my videos and rewatch them in the coming year for motivation, I'll be able to know that on this day, we're talking about hard things. We're talking about how, you may have these big things that you want, but there might be a prophecy of struggle along the way. But it does not mean that you are not covered. It does not mean that God is not there with you. Today's video is a bit, I'd say, messy and less structured as the previous videos, but I like the fact that I spoke from my heart, and I'm hoping that you caught the heart of the message outside of maybe where I may have tripped over some of my words. But otherwise, let's get into the closing video. I promised myself that I'd have some water close by when I'm recording Faith Friday videos, for the reason that I read and then speak a lot. I'm very parched right now because of it. No water, but I'll definitely have water next week, Friday. But otherwise, just as an encouragement as you go into this new weekend, as you go into the last week of November, just want to encourage you that God is your shield and He is your exceeding great reward over and above any materialistic thing that you might be praying for, any goal that you might have for 2026. If you are to lose all of those things and not be able to accomplish all of those things, I want to challenge you to get God and get to a place where you've established a rhythm with God in terms of how you pray, how you read your word, how you intercede for others, how you show gratitude in your life as a posture, as a consistent posture, no matter what's happening around you. Because I believe posturing yourself that way, especially in the storm, changes so much in terms of you being able to experience the joy that lives in knowing God. So I just want to encourage you in that way at the end of today's video. But otherwise, I'm excited because next week is the last week in November, and then Vlogmas. There's this cute pair of earrings that I saw at Lavissa that like Christmas themed that I was so tempted to get, but restrained. But I might get them. if I find myself at Effort Junction before December. But otherwise, please watch this space for. Let me set up. Please watch this space for my vlogmas in December. I don't know what I'm going to be getting up to every day, but definitely not leaving the house. But talking head videos where I'm going to talk about marriage. I'm going to talk about our wedding, getting ready for our wedding. I'm going to talk about pregnancy and momhood. So I'm going to start four new playlists from the month of December, because every single day. But the videos are probably just going to be short videos, like 10-15 minutes, whatever I can manage that day, and upload them. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching this video, and I'm grateful for having had been here. So proud of you, little girl. May God's favor locate you as you go into this new weekend, and may His grace sustain you as you live out your life. Be blessed, and see you next Friday. Father Abraham had many sons, and many sons had Father Abraham. I am one of them, and so are you.